Hey everyone, it's Evan. I'm obviously not in my airplane today. Not a good day for flying. It's a cold, snowy day in January in Colorado, and the ramps are icy, and it's snowy, and the low ceilings just doesn't make it conducive to flying. So I thought I'd just talk about mountain flying today. Hope you're interested in that. Welcome aboard. I'm Evan Anderman, a geologist, photographer, and pilot based in Denver, Colorado. Come with me as I discover new ways to look at the environment.
Going east, 6 Mike Yankee, thank you.
Yeah, when I go flying in the mountains and I make these videos, there's a lot that goes into it that you don't see. And I thought I just wanted to say that, you have to fly responsibly. So it's important to have personal minimums when you fly anywhere for that matter, but especially in the mountains. Some things that I think of that you've noticed on some of my flights is that I always look at the winds aloft at 12,000 feet, and if they're more than 30 knots, then I don't go flying over the mountains. Also, if there's any clouds obscuring the mountains at all, I won't fly over the mountains, even if I have the ability with my instrument rating to do that. I just don't think with a single engine that that's a safe thing to do. I try to only have 90% of the max gross weight on board just to leave a cushion with the weight of the airplane so I don't get into trouble there. But these are a couple of examples of my personal minimums that I use whenever I'm flying around the mountains. I have other ones for instrument flying and VFR flying, cross-country flying, all that stuff. So it's a good thing to know what your limitations are before you go to the airport so you don't get kind of attracted into changing them on the fly, as it were, and going for a flight that you shouldn't be going for. For example, on that departure from Aspen, I headed up towards Independence Pass, and I made it look like I didn't know if I was going to clear it or not. But that's because I feel comfortable with my airplane that has the turbocharger, has a pretty good climb rate. I thought I was going to make it, but I knew that if I didn't, I have experience doing turns within a valley like that. So I knew that I could do a couple turns and gain the altitude. If you're not comfortable doing that, then the alternative is to gain the altitude before you head that direction. So maybe over the airport in Aspen or over the town, somewhere in a much more open area, you could circle and gain the altitude and then head over to Independence Pass. So you got to do what's comfortable for you, what's within your abilities and your experience, and fly responsibly. So I thought I'd talk today a little bit about the resources that I look at regarding the weather. And I have a whole tab group set up in my Chrome here. You can see called Aviation. I can toggle it on or off. I first look at the Aviation Weather Center. The current observations you can see is useful. Good overview of what's going on. You can look at the Prog Chart, which is the forecast of what's coming down the road, and you can look out to like 5 days in advance. Also, I look at the winds and temps aloft, and that's useful when I'm flying over the mountains and just generally to know what's going on. Like you can see Denver right now is pretty windy here at 9,000 feet. It's at a 360, 31 knots. Anyway. I also look at the satellite view just to see what's coming and where things are headed in general. Sometimes the fire smoke map is interesting because the skies will be obscured by the smoke, and so it's nice to know that before you head into that area. The Storm Prediction Center is a NOAA site, and you can look at what the thunderstorms that they're predicting. Also, just looking at the Weather Service and what the warnings are by state about what's coming up. Then sometimes I drill down to actual forecasts at a location. Here's Denver, just a different way of looking at output from the models and a quick way to see what's going on. I also have a second location generally. If I'm flying somewhere like Boise or Casper or somewhere like that, Salt Lake City, then I have that up here so I can see what the weather is at the destination. Kind of the first glance before I drill down into anything. I also think it's interesting to look at the National Airspace System status. It's generally not a concern for me. in my flying, but sometimes it is. It's when you're flying commercially, you get to see what's going on. You can see right now it's January, so there's a lot going on. A number of different airports. You can see there's a lot of de-icing right now because of the snowstorm that's going on. I also follow this forecaster named Don Day who lives in Wyoming, and I find that his forecasts are fascinating because he goes into a lot of detail, presents a lot of information. Even though he's based in Wyoming, it's generally covering all of North America. And I've learned a lot just watching these. Don't have to watch it every day, but you kind of get a feeling for what's coming on. I have a similar tab group set up on my iPhone, and I have the same setup on my iPad. Now, the other thing I have on my iPad is this app called AWC, which I've found to be incredibly helpful. You can see that when you come in, there are a number of groups over here on the left that I've set up as I've needed to go out and do flights. Obviously, I have one called Denver where I can quickly look and see what's going on. But I can also drill down by going to one of these. And here you can see it says Centennial, the wind 360 at 30, gusting to 41. Okay, that would not be a good day to be there. The different information from the forecast, from the TAF, and then you get other interesting information like the station elevation, pressure, altitude, density, altitude, freezing level. There we go. Is at the surface. Wind chill is 7 degrees with that wind. It also presents the information in this format, where you can see it all at once. You can see the snow and the overcast and the winds and the gusts and the temperature. So I quickly will look at this kind of stuff, and I'll either do the short or the long just to look at. It's different model output. It shows you the runways and the wind versus each one of the runways. So this is a super resource for me also, just because I can get so much information, drill down. Like say I want to go up to Idaho, I have a number of airports along the way as I go up there, and I can quickly see what the current weather situation is. And then they color code the forecasts. So you can see the purple obviously is when there's a low IFR that's been predicted. So anyway, this is a super resource to have also. Obviously you have to pay for it, but I highly recommend that as well. If you want to learn more about flying in the mountains of Colorado, I highly recommend that you go to the Colorado Pilots Association mountain flying page. If you just Google that, you'll get to this page, and I'll put a link down below as well. And there's all sorts of good information that you can find here. Another resource that I want to talk about is the Colorado Airport Directory that you can download on the Colorado Department of Transportation website. The Colorado Airport Directory actually has quite a bit of useful information in it as well. If you go into it, you can see that there's a glossary, there's the codes for all the airports and a bunch of different frequencies and phone numbers that might be helpful. Here you go, mountain flying safety information, the do's and don'ts of mountain flying. There's a list of the Colorado mountain passes and a little description of them that could be helpful. The automated weather observing systems located at airports and actually beyond. Yep, and then you get into, here's a description of the actual mountain passes along with pictures that you might see along the way, which is kind of interesting and useful for the first time coming through. And then it gets into talking about the individual airports. So it's hard being stuck inside on a cold, snowy day when I'd rather be out flying in the mountains. But, you know, I can still dream about where I might go when the weather turns better. In dreaming about places where I want to go and do videos, I thought the map of Colorado with all the airports on it would be interesting to look at. Now, the gold stars show the airports that I've already visited, and you can see I've done a pretty good job. Considering doing practice approaches, and remember when I'm doing these approaches in the mountain, that this is just for fun. I'm doing it VFR. I'm looking out the window. I'm just taking the route and trying to see what it looks like when it's nice weather. So keep that in mind. The good news is there's a GPS approach at most of these airports. There is a list that don't have them, some of the smaller ones, but most of the mountain ones have a GPS approach that I could do. So I've already done Salida and Kremling, although I'd like to get back to Kremling and do that missed approach and see how my airplane performs. I'd obviously like to do Granby also. I think Steamboat Springs would be interesting. Walden would be nice. It's pretty wide open, but the Never Summer Mountains there would be beautiful to look at. Okay, so Leadville, Buena Vista would be good to do. Gunnison, Aspen would be interesting, but it's so busy, I doubt I could get in there and do a practice approach. Same with Eagle, although I'd still like to fly into Eagle. Then like Rifle and Meeker and Rangeley. And what else did I see that I want? I definitely want to visit. If I go down to Telluride, I also want to get to Durango and Cortez and visit some of the smaller airports out there. The other thing I'd like to do is to visit some backcountry airstrips. So I'm on the Recreational Aviation Foundation website looking at their Airfield guide, which I highly recommend. And this shows backcountry airstrips in the area. Here you can see Denver. We don't have very many in Colorado, so I thought I'd look at some of these. There's this Marble, 3,600 feet. I've always wanted to go up and do that, so I'll have to do a video of that. Down in northern New Mexico, I've always wanted to do this one called Grant Besley, which is north of Taos, near the Rio Grande Gorge. That looks interesting. The interesting ones that I thought would be fun are actually out on the Great Salt Lake in Salt Lake City. And there are a couple right by the lake. First of all, this spiral jetty, 2,000 feet, a little short, but lower elevation with the turbo. I think that'll work. Up here, Locomotive Springs, 2,700 feet long, and the Black Mountain, 2,700 feet long. Anyway, I'd love to go out there. I've done a video out going around the Great Salt Lake. I want to get back out and take some pictures and maybe actually land at some of these places. So I thought it was a good way to spend the cold winter day inside by giving you a little background on what goes into each one of these flights that I do up in the mountains. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope to do more of these behind the scenes videos in the future, just showing you different things, talking more about the airplane and the modifications I made to it, showing you how I pre-flight it and what goes into making the videos, the way I mount the GoPros and the different aspects there. So anyway, if you have any ideas, please make a comment below. Let me know what that is and I'll try and incorporate it. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next flight.